What about if somebody says to you, look, I'm just overwhelmed by this. There's too many things to think about, too many different options. Can you just give me like a short list of things I can do that will count as RSI? Like the most basic, straightforward things I can do to make sure we're meeting the standards.
I would say you're likely already doing it, and that's a relief. ACCJC may use different terminology, just like Title V uses different terminology. The Chancellor's Office uses different terminology. But in terms of practices, we all do it. We just don't know that's what that is. And so having discussion boards, that's RSI, right? Having a lecture video that you then pair up with maybe a discussion board, maybe you have a little quiz, right, in Canvas or a survey, a lecture survey. Those all count as RSI. Anytime you provide feedback on an assignment for a student, which we all do, that's RSI. When you're sending out regular announcements for the class and it is substantive in that it's talking about the content of the course, not, hey, the Dodgers won, isn't that great? Because that one wouldn't count as RSI, unfortunately. But when it's containing stuff related to the course, all of that is RSI. It's a long list of stuff that counts as RSI. And because education, learning is interactive and all about engagement, it's nearly everything we do.
If that's true, then let's flip it and say, give me just a few examples of a course that would fail or would not meet the standard. What would they see hypothetically?
So in my imagination, what they would say is they would go into your Canvas shell and they would say that you have created a number of pages of text. Maybe they're your lecture notes. And that's kind of it, right? You have loads and loads of pages of lecture notes. Maybe occasionally you threw in there a TED Talk video you found on YouTube, right? Or a National Geographic video or what have you. And you could do those, obviously, but those aren't your voice. That's not your curation. Additionally, folks who are essentially using a course pack entirely from their textbook, that's not your voice. It's your textbook company's voice, right? And so they may have some good stuff for you to start with, and that's grand and absolutely harvest at will, but you need to be there. You need to be there. And I would say a good litmus test for you is always to ask yourself, would this fly if I was in person? Is that all I would do if I was in person is I would turn up at class and I would say, oh, what's the video that came with my textbook for chapter 12? Play. And we'll all just sit around and watch it together. You wouldn't do that. And so they're going to be looking for things like that, right? A lot of overuse, I would say, of outside materials that you haven't in some way adopted to your own teaching and your own SLOs and objectives of the course, they're going to be looking for stuff like that. They likewise may see that you have all auto-graded assignments. That's not going to fly either, right? Because again, your voice isn't there. You're Professor Robot. No Professor Robots. That's not going to fly. So I would say that most of us wouldn't do those things. You may use textbook resources, but that's not all you do. You may have some multiple choice quizzes in Canvas, but that's not your only assessment. And so those are what they're looking for. And so what you'll get is a grade of uh, emerging because they're trying not to be mean about it, right? But we need it to be developed. And it doesn't even have to be well developed. It just has to be developed. That's it.